Okay, in this lesson, I'm going to walk you through some of the basic Docker commands to work with images and containers. But before I do that, I'm operating in a WebStorm environment on a Node.js application. It's a fairly minimal Node.js application. It's just really a hello world listening on port 3000. I also have a package.json file with my dependencies, and I have a Docker file. So the Docker file is really a way of building images from an application. This particular Docker file has the from command or instruction to pull node version 12 or version.12 from the Docker Hub repo. And if it succeeds, it'll go on to the next step, which is to create a working directory called /app. This command then add is basically saying within the context of the Docker file, that dot means to copy all the files within this environment and the dependencies, or I should say the subdirectories, into this /app directory. Then the next thing, if it's successful with that command, it will run npm install, and that will cause the Node Package Manager to pull in any dependencies that aren't in that environment. And then I'll expose port 3000 with the expose command. And then finally, I'll go ahead and run the node index.js, which will actually start this Node.js server. So let's get started by doing I have a terminal window here in the bottom of my screen within the WebStorm environment. So I'll do a Docker images command. And from that, I'll see that I have two images on this local machine. One is Ubuntu, which is the latest version. It has an image ID. It's showing that it was created 2 weeks ago, and it has a base size of 124.8 megabytes. And then I also have a node image with the tag of .12 image ID 12 days ago, and it's added quite a bit of file size. It's 641.7 megabytes. So let me just walk you through another command that's useful for building an image from the Docker file that we just examined. And you do that with the docker build-t, and you want to provide a name for your image. So in this example, I'll just call it node2 and colon, and you can put something like latest, or you can put a version, whatever you want to tag it with, and then just conclude that with a dot. And if you do that, you'll see that it's going to run through these steps for each of the commands listed in your Docker file. Now, one of the things that it does after it creates or succeeds upon each step is it actually creates a snapshot, if you will, of that state of your image. So now if I do the same Docker images command, I can see that now I have a node2 image with the tag of latest. Now to run that image and actually create a container from it, I can do docker run, and I'll give it the -i for interactive and T for terminal. And then I need to provide it an image ID. So I'll go ahead and copy this image ID, paste it into the command. And then you want to provide it a command to execute when the container is up and running. In this example, I'll just do a /bin/bash, which will now run that image and then provide me a kind of shell environment into that container. And I can do the same kind of Linux commands that I would do if I were in any Linux instance, such as list, and see that I have my files in the app directory. So now I've got my container up and running. Now, if I go over to Kitematic, which is kind of a little companion tool that I can get from docker.com, you'll see that I have a couple of instances here. Now, if you ever need help just looking at the commands that you have available, you can just do docker help, and that'll display. Oops. Now, to stop an instance that I'm in, I can just do exit, and that will exit me out of that instance. And now I can do docker ps, and I don't show anything there. Now, when you do the docker ps, as I covered in an earlier lesson, you're just going to see the instances that are actually running. Now, since I created this image from that Docker file and ran it, but I've exited it, it's no longer going to show in the docker ps. So if I want to actually see it, I'll have to do a docker ps with a flag of A, and that'll show me that that instance is there. It's just been exited, so it's not in a running state. Now, to remove a Docker container, if that's what you want to do, you can just do docker remove with rm, and then provide it a container ID, and that'll remove it. And to remove an image, Let's say I want to remove node 2. I can do docker RMI for image, except in this case, I'll need to provide it an image ID, and that'll remove the image. And you can see here that it's actually removing all those snapshots that it created when it ran this Docker file. So all those snapshots made up the image. One other thing to keep in mind is that when you first create, let's say, a Docker image from a Docker file, it's going to take a little time to download that initial package using the from command. But after that's been downloaded, any changes that you make to this Docker image is really only going to build the steps that it doesn't already have built. So it gets a little quicker, faster build time than it does the first time. So that's just a general introduction to some of the Docker commands that you can use to work with containers and images.